This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. There. Said it. That's it. That's all I really need to say. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, before you click off the video, because that is really what you want to know, I will talk about how this movie is the most insulting movie I've seen in, I want to say my entire life, but wait until the end, I will explain my reasoning. But I just need to tell you guys this. As a film critic, online, I feel like my duty is to point my viewers in the direction of movies worth checking out, worth their time, because time is precious in this day and age, because once you lose it, you can't get it back. I hope that you guys spend your time more wisely on literally anything other than watching Pinocchio on Disney+. I'm talking vacuum your apartment, clean your toilets, clean your shower, clean your mirrors, anything other than watching this movie. I know that those tasks do not sound as engaging or as exciting as watching a Disney movie, but at least with those tasks, you'll get something out of it. Something. You won't feel angry. You won't feel insulted. You won't be talked down to. You won't feel like you're watching some corporate nightmare. You'll get some sort of benefit. And my two main problems with this movie, and I'll get into them. Number one, I don't feel like I'm watching a movie. I feel like I'm watching a corporate product. And number two, because of that, this movie feels like it's just trying to recapture the magic of the 1940 film as opposed to trying to tell us a story. And I really hate to get into this, but this movie is just oozing with it. This movie is not interested in telling a story. It's interested in pushing an agenda and changing the themes of the story that we all know and love and we've known for 80 years. Let's get into it. Hey guys, my name is Brandon, aka the BrandoCritic. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I really do appreciate it. And even though I'm telling you guys not to watch this movie, I'm glad that you guys are still here to hear my reasonings for it. But even for a movie like this, a movie that I just find absolutely awful, if you love this movie, don't know if we can be friends, but let me know down in the comment section down below. I want to hear all opinions. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know your thoughts of Pinocchio down in the comment section down below. And of course, like always, I'm here to give you my honest, no BS, non-spoiler review. I will get into spoilers at the end, but I will give you a warning, and trust me, that's the part of the video that you will want to watch because that is the insulting part. I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts on Pinocchio and tell you if it's worth a watch. Answer is no, but let's get into it. So we have Pinocchio from Robert Zemeckis, and you know him from such films as Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3, Forrest Gump, Castaway, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, many others, Polar Express, Beowulf, Welcome to Marwen, you get the picture. It stars Tom Hanks, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Keegan-Michael Key, and the kid who plays Pinocchio, his name is Benjamin Evan Ainsworth. So is this movie worth a watch? Well, no. Of course it isn't. Definitely not. So like I said earlier, this movie feels like it's too focused on recapturing the magic from the original movie as opposed to trying to tell a really great story with great characters and engaging and interesting and intriguing storyline, plot with themes, you name it, and have an emotional connection with the audience. This movie fails on all of those fronts. And because of that, this feels like an agenda-pushing corporate product as opposed to a story, especially for children. Let's get into the good moments because there are two of them. Number one, I'm happy that Pinocchio looks like Pinocchio. I'm glad that they did not go the Lion King route with trying to make all of our characters look extremely realistic, thus having no emotion on their faces. Pinocchio looks like Pinocchio, sounds like Pinocchio. I'm glad they did not go the Shrek route with trying to change up his design or trying to make him look more realistic and just, you know, somewhat creepy, like those Lost Ollie dolls in the Lost Ollie Netflix series. Sorry to throw that show under the bus again. Pinocchio looks like Pinocchio, so that's a good thing. And number two, Joseph Gordon-Levitt sounds like Jiminy Cricket. And that's it. Honestly, I can try to look for any other good moment or good thing in this movie. There is nothing. Just those two. Now, let's get into the bad moments because, trust me, I have a few pages. Number one is that the acting is just terrible. Tom Hanks, okay? Tom Hanks, the legend Tom Hanks. One of my favorite actors of all time. If someone asks me who's your favorite actor, I'll go the two Toms, Hanks and Cruise. Oh boy, did he phone this one in. Number one, he is not consistent with the accent. And number two, it feels like he's doing children's theater. Seeing a man wish upon a star in live action, you know, it's a tricky thing to do because it is a very silly action. It really does feel like Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis feel like they're making this movie for 3-year-olds. It's really pandering. Now, someone might say, well, Brandon, this movie is for 3-year-olds, idiot. My point is that children's movies, or movies that are made for children, family films that stand the test of time, are not necessarily made for children. It's made for adults, for families, for everyone, and children can watch along and be engrossed by the characters in the story and the themes. So Pixar was really, really great at this. Toy Story, Ratatouille, Cars, Incredibles, Finding Nemo, a lot of their earlier works, they were movies made just about characters. They weren't pandering to children. This movie, especially Tom Hanks's performance, it feels like children's theater. And you can tell that the only reason why he's in this movie is because of the name, his association with Disney, and Robert Zemeckis and him are pals. So he's like, hey Tom, wanna come on set for a few hours and get paid? Sure, let's phone it in, we'll be home by noon, and there you go. That's Tom Hanks in this movie. Just terrible. And it really pains me to say that, by the way. But next is the voice acting. It is not smooth whatsoever. It feels like every single line is chopped up, put together. It doesn't feel natural. They added some songs in this movie because of course they did. Those are all god awful. Especially the song from Luke Evans at Pleasure Island. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. And the kid that Pinocchio talks to at Pleasure Island, and they're drinking beer and they're playing pool. Actually, they don't drink any beer. They just blow on the bubbles, you know, because you can't have kids drinking beer nowadays. The kid that he hangs out with at Pleasure Island, he's trying to do like this young Robert De Niro kind of young New Yorker hip street kind of guy. Just sucks. The kid sucks. And I get it, that's a bit harsh. But it's true though, he sucks. Jiminy Cricket in this movie is just purely annoying, not funny, and biggest sin of all, you feel no connection between him and Pinocchio. And I don't know if that's just the performances, but I do think it's the message and the theme that this movie brings forward, and I will talk about that at the end. Trust me, I'm just gonna frickin' rage. Character moments in this movie feel rushed, unearned, and completely empty, especially the scene where his nose starts to grow. That is the biggest scene in the movie, if not one of the biggest scenes. The scene about lying and how it's bad, and a lie keeps growing and growing and growing. That moment felt so empty, and it didn't feel like it was in there because that's what the character needed to learn at that point in the story. It was in there because it had to be in there. It was in the last one, so it has to be in this one too. It doesn't feel earned. And this movie feels extremely corporate. This movie has no soul. And I realized this as soon as Geppetto's clock started to go off, because you saw a Toy Story clock, and a Lion King clock, and a Donald Duck clock, and a Who Framed Roger Rabbit clock, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. Because I can see the producer's brain going, hey, look, we're gonna put all these little cameos in. We're gonna put all these little cameos in the movie, and then people who like Disney movies will recognize that and be associated with those feelings going, oh my god, I know what that is! That's Roger Rabbit! I know what Roger Rabbit is! They have it on VHS! I know what that is! This is the thing too. I know I'm getting really, really passionate about this. Sure, I like Roger Rabbit. I like Lion King. I like all of these movies that this movie is paying homage to or having a cameo of. But it just takes me out of the movie. I feel like it's just corporate thinking. It's just saying, hey, our audience is stupid. Our audience will recognize those things and associate with them and go, hey, I know those things. And then they'll be in a good mood. And that means that this movie's a good movie. It doesn't work like that, people. And I think that a lot of people get tricked by this. Just the fact knowing that the newer Aladdin film and the newer Lion King film, you know, crossed $1 billion each at the box office is just the most depressing film fact I think I know, period. It's a corporate, soulless movie. It's not even a movie, it's a product. There's a Chris Pine joke in this movie because Pinocchio is made out of wood, pine tree, and then that fox is like, I forget the fox's name, but he's like, oh, your name could be Chris Pine. It's just awful. Now, spoilers. From here on out, if you really want to watch the movie, and if you really do, then you have not listened to a single word I said the entire video. And my rating's a 1 out of 5, so getting that out of the way just right now. But this is where the film falls into the worst films of all time category for me. This is where the film gets insulting. The story of Pinocchio, generally speaking, through all different iterations, generally is about a boy learning, or a puppet, learning about right and wrong, telling the truth, being a good person, learning about how people will manipulate you. People will tempt you with things that are generally not good for you, and you have to decide whether it's right or wrong and go on the road of righteousness. That is the story of Pinocchio, not this one. This movie, or should I say product, is about anti-ableism. Because of course it is. And here's where the spoiler comes into play. Pinocchio, at the end of this movie, does not turn into a real boy. Now just think about that for a second. Pinocchio does not turn into a real boy. Harry Potter does not live. Luke Skywalker does not blow up the Death Star. Pinocchio doesn't turn into a real boy. Because the reasoning in this movie is that because he knows how to be truthful and unselfish and brave, he is a true boy in his heart, not what's on the outside. Now, I get it. There's a new character in this movie who has a wooden or marionette style leg, some mechanical leg, okay? And the message of the movie, and I think it is a good message in a vacuum, that just because you have a bionic limb, or you might not have a certain number of limbs like regular people do, or is that the right word to use? You know what I'm talking about. If you're missing an arm, you're missing a leg, whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that you're not a real person. It's a great message, but that's not the message of Pinocchio. If you want to tell that message, tell a different story, because this story does not lend itself well to this message, and I'll tell you why. In the original movie, Pinocchio is going to school, and he gets lured away by the cat and the fox to become famous, to throw away school and become famous in the puppet show. And he just goes. In this version, he doesn't. He ends up going to school, but gets kicked out because of the teacher's prejudice. It's prejudice that leads him down the bad path. It's the prejudice of others which is at fault here in this film. The film is no longer about learning the difference between bad and good and going down the path of righteousness and learning about temptation. The movie is about us as the audience not judging people for having bionic limbs, basically. Because when he's in Pleasure Island, and that whole section of the movie is about not having everything that you want all the time and how you can't just be reckless and you can't indulge yourself in all of these pleasures in life because they have more harm than good. And they might feel good in the moment, but long term, they're definitely not good for you. In this moment, in the film, or in the product, again, Pinocchio looks around and he goes, this doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be doing any of these things. He doesn't do anything reckless. He doesn't break anything. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't actually do anything bad. And he already knows or feels that this is wrong. So with that being the case, number one, his ears and his tail shouldn't show up, right? Like the donkey ears. That shouldn't show up. And number two, if he doesn't do anything wrong and he already knows the difference between right and wrong, then why have Jiminy Cricket in the film at all? You know what I'm saying? The film is no longer about being good or bad, learning from right from wrong. It's about ableism. Thus, Pinocchio does not turn into a real boy. He was a real boy all along. So that to me was just completely insulting. It was more insulting than John Connor being killed in Terminator Dark Fate within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Spoilers, but hey, that movie's not very good either. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Pinocchio. If you like this video, want to see more, hit like and subscribe. Guys, just don't watch this movie. If you disagree with me, let me know down below. Let's keep it civil. I will not judge you if you like this movie, but I'll tell you right now that if you genuinely love this movie, then you and I are on a completely different wavelength when it comes to films. It's just, that's the case. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.